which they came back from down 17 points at the home opener at Lincoln Financial Field. Now joining us on the hotline is a man that has accomplished a lot in the National Football League. He was a former NFL GM and personnel man with the Browns, Ravens, and Eagles. In addition to, he does the color analysis for the Alabama football radio broadcast. He's also the director of the Senior Bowl, and he's also on the great show on ESPN called NFL Insiders, and that's Phil Savage. Phil, it's your buddy Zach Gelb and Chase Sr. here in Philly. How are you on this Monday?
Well, good morning, Zach and Chase. It's all good, and we're underway NFL-wise after college heated up a couple weeks ago.
Yes, we are, and we're actively covering the Temple football team, which beat Vanderbilt down south in the opening game and then lost to Navy, so they're 1-1. So we got the college football back and we got the Eagles back, so it's a very exciting time here in Philadelphia. But I first have to start you off with the new Ray Rice video that has surfaced that was leaked via TMZ, where it shows him knocking out his fiancée in an elevator. We know that Commissioner Roger Goodell has already suspended him 2 games, and he's expected to come back week 3. You know Ozzie Newsome, you know Coach Harbaugh and the commissioner. What do you think their next move is in this thing? Because a lot of players, especially Terrence Knighton of the Denver Broncos, who played on Sunday Night Football and defeated the Colts, just came out and sounded off against Ray Rice. The NFL has to find a way not to get him on the field in week 3. Is that possible?
Well, this is a story that's had a lot of twists and turns, and as far away as you and I, when I was up for Insiders at ESPN, there was talk that this video was out, and it took 2 months for it finally to go public. But I think this puts a lot of pressure on the Ravens and Ozzie Newsome and owner Steve Bisciotti in terms of, do they now step in and say, look, we're going to suspend Ray Rice internally for another 6 games in addition to the 2 that he will miss, or is it for the year? The problem there is that usually you have to have the support of the league because there's a grievance filed by the player and his representatives. But what player and what representative is going to fight this and end up on the wrong side of the fence in terms of this domestic violence issue? It's really messy, and I think it goes without saying that his playing status beyond this weekend is certainly up in the air.
Whether it's with the whole Ray Rice and the domestic abuse incident, or whether it's the DUIs that you saw with Jim Irsay, there's just too many players and too many NFL people that are getting arrested. I always tune into the website Pro Football Talk, and they have an arrest tracker count, and the number really doesn't get past 10 days usually. You were a former NFL GM with the Browns. When an issue like this happens, how do you address the team about this situation, if you even do so? Because players need to start realizing that they represent the NFL, and it's really starting to create a black eye for the league.
Well, the disappointing thing is that probably of a 53-man roster plus your practice squad and your injured reserve people, you're looking at about 70 total players. And I would venture to guess that 65 of those 70 go above and beyond what they're supposed to do in terms of representing themselves, their family, their hometown, their school, and more above all of that, their organization. The problem is that those other 10 or 15 seem to be the ones that get most of the attention for all the wrong reasons. And, I think it's something where you have to rely on your veteran leadership. I think you also have to make sure that your ownership, your front office, and your coaching staff are on the same page and singing from the same song sheet in terms of how you're going to handle these different things that come up over the course of not only during the season, but now for a 12-month calendar year.
Phil Savage joins us right now, WHIP Radio here in Philadelphia. Phil, it's Chase. Thanks for hopping on the program. You are the executive director of Reese's Senior Bowl, and I've seen you throw out a lot of stats about seniors who go to the Senior Bowl making NFL opening day rosters, whether that be on the 53 or on the practice squad. Can you just tell our listeners why it's so important that some of these college football players stay in school for 4 years and attend that Senior Bowl compared to some of the other players that come out and are underclassmen?
Chase, I think in a general sense, any time that you can go back and spend another year honing your craft, advancing your draft stock potentially more often than not. Yes, a player can come back and get hurt. I get that. I think in certain positions, players are probably wise to go ahead and come out, particularly at the running back spot, as an example. But by and large, it's proven over the course of time that you can improve your draft stock. You're going to get a chance to go through this entire pre-draft run-up, be it through all-star games, the combine, all the interviews. You're another year. You have another year of maturity under your belt. And as an example, this year, you mentioned some of the numbers, 99 of our Senior Bowl players from this past year are currently drawing a paycheck. 99 out of the 110 or so that were invited, whereas the 102 juniors that declared for the draft, of that group, only 60-some odd of those players were selected. There were 30-something, 38 of them that were not drafted, and I think there's currently 19 of them that are completely on the street right now with no recourse in terms of where to go other than perhaps the CFL or the Arena League.
There's an R around NFL opening weekend that can't be matched, and there was a magical scene in South Philly yesterday as the Eagles did take down the Jaguars 34-17, and it wasn't pretty early. Jacksonville goes up 17-0 before the Birds come back and score 34 straight. In that first half, Nick Foles had a disastrous performance, but he finishes 27 of 45, 322 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception. How crucial is it for a young quarterback to come back in the second half after having a first half like Foles did yesterday and finishing strong, especially as he's in the midst of the developmental process?
Well, it's extremely important yesterday because I think that there are still doubters out there in regards to Nick Foles, despite what he did last year, the 27 touchdowns against only 2 interceptions. But to be able to respond and bounce back from a very substandard first half, not only for Nick Foles, but for the entire Eagles team, was very important. And it just goes to show where the two organizations are. The Jaguars are really trying to develop under Gus Bradley. We saw them come out and play extremely well, create some turnovers. We saw a free agent named Allen Hurns who, came out with 2 big touchdown receptions from Chad Henne, but they were not able to sustain it. And you contrast that with where the Eagles were in terms of a very slow start and then ultimately get a couple of really big stops before the end of the half. The Jaguars missing those 2 field goals, 1 block, 1 wide to the left, and then they took over the game from there. And, I think in the division that the Eagles reside in NFC East, it really bodes well for what kind of season they can have this year.
A big question with the Eagles was who was going to replace the production of one Deshaun Jackson. And yesterday, the big pass-catching tight end who was also playing a lot in the slot, Zach Ertz, had a really good football game. What do you like about Ertz when you see him on the film? Because he could be a big piece for Nick Foles this year.
Yeah, I really thought that when Philly let go of Deshaun Jackson, they obviously felt like internally they had enough assets to go forward in this Chip Kelly offense. And Zach Ertz is a big part of that. Darren Sproles is another piece of the puzzle. They obviously drafted George Matthews, who I know had at least one big-time contribution on that over-route in the first half. But nevertheless, I think with Chip Kelly's system, he's very confident in the way it's structured. The ball is going to be spread around, and he knows that with Shady McCoy in the backfield and Nick Foles distributing the ball, that they have a chance to move it consistently, regardless of Deshaun Jackson's presence or not.
And also, you look at the offense, a big acquisition this offseason was when they brought in Darren Sproles, and he was the Energizer Bunny yesterday as he got that touchdown. The points just started to fall for the Eagles as they came back from down 17. How good of a feeling is that when you're an NFL GM and one of your big offseason acquisitions just comes out there on the first day and makes a big play?
Well, it's always great from a personnel evaluation aspect when you get contributions right away, because I think it kind of calms the waters in terms of when people have questions about which free agents you brought in, which players you drafted, et cetera, et cetera. So if you get an immediate return, I think you can. It's a positive feeling, and you can also build off of that. And I really expect Darren Sproles' role to expand as they create some different personnel groupings and formations that will really accentuate the positives that he brings to the table.
We're talking to Phil Savage right now, and Phil, I just want to take you back to when Chip Kelly was hired, because a lot of people were skeptical as if his system could work from the college ranks to the professional ranks. When he was hired, what were your thoughts of the hiring of Chip Kelly, and what has impressed you the most so far as Chip Kelly has entered his second season as head coach of the Eagles?
Well, I think Chip has the personality that he's going to do it his way, and I think that he's been able to come into the league. He's brought in a lot of the conditioning and some of the modernized thinking in terms of how to practice. Obviously, he gets a lot of recognition for the offense that has transitioned quite favorably to the NFL. But at the same time, with the rules and the emphasis on the contact fouls and the defensive pass interference, this only plays more into the hands of Chip and his offensive staff in terms of the spreading of the field, the idea of creating space, and getting these athletes out in the open grass. It's been a nice fit so far, and I was very anxious to see what adjustments he would make. Everybody talks about, well, the defensive coaches around the league now have a chance to study his offense, blah, blah, blah. Well, he also had a chance to go study NFL defense and put some other wrinkles into his system, and I think we saw some of that as recently as yesterday.
I know there's some interesting conversations before the 1 o'clock games, and especially before San Francisco got ready to take on the Cowboys right at 4:25 about the status of Jim Harbaugh's job. They weren't able to get a new contract for him, and Jay Glazer went out there on Fox yesterday and said he'd be surprised if he's the head coach of the San Francisco 49ers next year. What do you make out of this whole Jim Harbaugh mess, and do you think he'll be the coach for the long-term future of the San Francisco 49ers?
My personal feeling on it is that I would agree with Jay Glazer. I think that when that contract was not extended over the summer, that really signaled that they would continue dating for another year. It's almost Super Bowl win or bust for the 49ers. And if you look at their coaching staff, they have at least 4 or 5 assistant coaches that I feel pretty sure the ownership and the front office would think that, hey, we could transition almost seamlessly away from Jim Harbaugh, and ultimately, based on what's going on in Michigan, based on what will happen in the NFL this year, he won't go very long without a job. But I tend to agree that I don't think he'll be back after this year.
Well, Phil, we appreciate a few minutes today. We know you have to go run, but we do appreciate it, and we look forward to talking with you as the season progresses. But thanks for a few minutes, and we'll talk again real soon.
Okay, Zach and Chase, I really appreciate it. I hope you guys have a great year.